Let's go watch it in 2D. No, let's go watch it in 3D. But if we watch it in 3D, then is it worth the cost?
Let's fight like demons.
I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer.
Dune, only in theaters.
Hello. This is Adolf, and I have with me Classic Jake and New Jake. Say hi, Classic Jake.
Hi.
And New Jake, please say the spice is here.
The spice is here.
And today we're reviewing Dune. Now, I have not watched this movie. Classic Jake reviewed it, and New Jake is just along for the ride. So, let's talk about the 3D aspect first, as usual. Classic Jake, what are your thoughts on the 3D aspect of Dune?
Okay. Denis Villeneuve went for something different, and it was really hard to grade. It's the 3D's there. There's depth. There's not a damn thing that pops out. There wasn't anything filmed particularly that to showcase that it was in 3D. This wasn't like Bond, where they had some really great scenes that they really took advantage of the 3D. It just creates depth. If you enjoy that, and you really are jonesing for 3D, you won't be disappointed. But if you want depth, more than depth to it, you'll be just fine watching it on the biggest screen you can find.
Okay.
That's pretty fair.
In your written review, Classic Jake, you said many of the wide shots look flat. Do you want to elaborate on that, or no?
Yeah, 3D, if you shoot it certain ways, it's because there's your vocal points, because Bond, this happened. I've noticed this lately. They're not going in and fudging the 3D in distant shots to create depth. And Dune, like Bond, a lot of the distant shots are flat.
I'd also say due to the muted color palette too, because in Dune it's like a lot of brown, and tan and earthy colors.
Yeah, and I was like going, and they shot some of Dune in the same desert they shot Lawrence of Arabia, and I'm like going, damn, that's Lawrence, because I kept thinking Lawrence, why didn't they kind of at least sometimes have some nice colors, because it's just ruining some of the visuals. I mean, I know why he picked that, because he's wanting to show how terrible and get the feeling of how terrible things are under Harkonnen rule.
Before we get more into the movie, so I just want to make sure people understand. You don't hate the 3D in this movie, right?
No, not at all. But it's not your typical 3D. It's did it to showcase the depth.
It's not awful. It's not bad. It's just you want more. That's what I'm getting.
Exactly. Yeah. Still good.
Okay.
It's just it's not great. And just lately we've been getting some great 3D.
Okay, so that's your final verdict as good 3D?
Yeah, it's good.
New Jake, do you concur? Or?
Yeah, I concur. Same things.
Yeah, because I ended up watching part of this on HBO Max just to see, because that was one of the reasons why my review was on the late side. I was struggling because even you sent me texts asking about it.
Yeah.
This sound like good 3D, and I'm like going, trust me, it is, but it's just doesn't take that extra step.
Okay. It just, I wanted to make sure that it was clear, and I wanted to make sure in this podcast too that it is clear. You did enjoy the 3D experience. You just wanted more from it, because you can also have this review and say it's weak 3D and you don't recommend it, but you liked it enough to enjoy it, to say, hey, this is a thumbs up. It's not great, but it could be better, but it's definitely worth your time if you're a 3D fan. So I just want to make sure that is absolutely clear.
Yeah, if you're hardcore, you're going to love it, because you know how us 3D heads are. But the thing is, if you're not really into it that much, you're going to be just as satisfied with seeing this on the biggest screen possible, because that was Villeneuve's what he was aiming for. The 3D is almost an afterthought.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's not as much as an afterthought as like A Wrinkle in Time, which was like, why did they even bother?
Ticket sales.
Yeah.
Okay. Now let's go to the movie itself. So Dune is based on the 1965 novel by Frank Herbert, and is considered one of the greatest sci-fi fiction novels of all time. I have not read this book. I have not seen this movie. I'm just kind of here to help guide the conversation for the podcast. So Dune is a sci-fi equivalent of Lord of the Rings. It's like a masterpiece. Is that right, Jake?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a sci-fi version of the fantasy. It's kind of its own genre almost. It's one of the biggest influences of the ecological movement on Earth. It's why woke up a whole generation to climate change.
And it's the first truly great Dune movie?
Yeah.
Okay.
Lynch's is not bad, but it was interfered with. And there's been so many other versions of Dune that never quite got off the ground. It's heartbreaking, but it's
Jodorowsky, for instance.
Yeah, exactly. That's a heartbreaker that didn't get made. And Frank Herbert, he was born in Tacoma, Washington, but he was raised in Salem, Oregon. So naturally the theaters was packed.
Now, have you read the book or novels?
I've read some of them, and I read them decades ago.
New Jake, have you read the books, the novels?
Never.
Okay.
It's almost a requirement here. If you haven't read them, you're going to be shamed, because he's the hometown boy done good. In fact, a lot of Dune was inspired by a sandstorm in Florence, Oregon. But let's get to the movie. Just giving you a little trivia.
All right, so what's the story about?
Okay, it's basically this big, giant political... I'll cut to the chase. It's basically, I was a teenage space Jesus. And there's a lot of white savior going on in this. But having said all that, it's a great story. It doesn't give you answers. It just points stuff out. Reality. It's kind of, for a science fiction novel, it's kind of reality-based. It's a far-flung future, post-computer. Computers have been basically in the Herbert Dune universe. They mention it through each book slightly, but the AI basically enslaved mankind, and mankind freed themselves, and then they outlawed computers. So they've developed technology without AI. And how they do stuff, they discovered this stuff called they nicknamed Spice, and it enables them to instantaneous space travel. It's an hallucinogen that grows the mind, and there's several factions of people trying to do things. Some are trying to enrich themselves, and other people are trying to jumpstart mankind into the next level of evolution. And there's a bunch of some people refer to them as nuns, some people refer to them as witches, the Bene Gesserit, and they're trying to, through selective breeding, basically eugenics, breed a male Bene Gesserit known as the Kwisatz Haderach, who will be able to access the memories of not only his mother but his father as well, and they think he will be the beginning of the next leap in human evolution.
Okay, wow.
And that's just a touch. And then you've got the various families in the emperor the Dune starts off with the Emperor throws the Harkonnens off of Arrakis, also known as Dune, because they've been mining the spice for decades, and he just tosses them off, gives a bunch of lame excuses why. The real reason he wants the Harkonnens off is because he wants to put in a political rival, the Atreides, and because he knows the Harkonnens will get mad and go kill them.
All right.
To get the planet back, and the billions they would make off of spice mining. Okay, that's basically what you kind of need to know. And they've changed. The movie stresses more about the mining of the spice and how it's destroying. See, Dune is this most arid planet, and it could have a regular ecosystem, but the mining of the spice has destroyed it. And the Fremen, who are the main people who live here, they have to drink their own sweat and urine, literally, to survive.
Okay.
So there's a lot of parallels to this interpretation to the Middle East, what's been done to it and its people, in the name of drilling for oil.
Okay. So, in your written review, you say there's a lot of complicated stories, that it's very Game of Thrones-esque, and a lot of exposition.
Yeah, Dune even the book has a lot of exposition.
And that the movie abruptly ends,
Well, good news on that front. After the first week, they announced that they will continue. There will be a part 2. So we're guaranteed they're going to finish the first book.
And also a miniseries.
Yeah, Vinny wants to do Dune Messiah as well. He says he could do that in one movie and make this a trilogy.
Okay. Now, just for the audience's sake, do you get like a full story here, or does it feel cut off?
Basically, this movie is going to feel cut off.
Okay.
It definitely ends on a cliffhanger.
All right. Now, like the acting and the cinematography is all well done?
Oh, it's incredibly well done.
Okay. New Jake, what are your thoughts on this movie real quick?
It is long. It is slow. It is smart. And it abruptly ends. It's not hard to follow. It's just not the most interesting movie out there. I don't think it needed to be over 2.5 hours long, but...
Well, actually, it needed to be that long to get the basic bones of the story out. And what's frightening is they punched up the action, because there's a lot more action in the movie than there is in the book.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's your final verdicts? Classic Jake, since you reviewed this, what's your verdict for the movie?
8 out of 10.
All right. New Jake?
6 out of 10. It was an okay movie.
All right.
That's fair.
All right. Well, that's going to be it for this spoiler-free podcast. Thanks. Bye.
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 Before this podcast wraps up, I want to thank my patrons. Thank you, Kano3D, Mr. Bengal 5, and Kevin Winter for your financial support on Patreon.com.
So that's going to be it for this podcast. Thanks for listening. You can find 3D or 2D on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Pinterest, Instagram, and more. Just look for 3D or 2D. Links are in the info box. If you want to send us listener mail, our email address is email3dortwo@gmail.com. Thank you for either listening or watching this podcast. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.